episode of the Female Empowered Podcast. I'm your host, Christa Gurka. And of course, there's my cough. Thank you to everyone, by the way, who has sent me. I got people sending me books on neurogenic cough, and I have people sending me posts, and I appreciate you caring so much about me. I did find a practitioner surprisingly on TikTok. So people, you can have clients find you on social media. So anyways, that's just an aside. But let me get back to the episode at hand. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought a little bit. Okay. So what we're going to talk about today is I did a poll on social on Instagram a couple weeks ago asking what you guys wanted to hear about, and the winning answer was finances. And so one of the things that I researched, I was like, okay, so what can I talk about in finances? And what I'm going to talk about today is healthy percentages in your business. So in other words, how much should you be spending in marketing? How much should you be spending in payroll? So when we're looking at finances, it's one thing, it's kind of like on blood work, right? If we're going to blood work and we have like an RH factor or an ANR or something like that, and we're like, okay, that's great, but what's normal? We don't know what's normal. So in business, it's the same. So our most often the things that we should be spending money on, like marketing and advertising, are what we're not spending enough money on. And then we're wondering why we're not growing. And we just had a really, really interesting conversation this week in my inner circle group office hours call, where we have our expert money team, Kickstart Accounting, in there. And we were just talking about the mindset around spending on marketing and the mindset around spending on growth to expand. And is it a mindset thing? Is it having a cushion? Do we need to have more money in savings? Or do we just need to look at our numbers and say, oh, we can afford to spend an additional 5% of our revenue going towards whatever it is we want to spend? So what we're going to talk about today are different percentages in terms of what we deem as healthy, what we deem as needs attention in either direction, like needs attention, and maybe you should be spending more in this area. All right. So the other thing I would like to say is that the second, which came in at a very close second when I did that poll on Instagram, was dealing with problem staff. Okay. So if you really want to hear about that topic, I would love for you to voice memo me a question over on Instagram. I'm at Christa Gurka. So go DM me a voice memo, or if you don't know how to voice memo, you can just DM me over on Instagram and let me know, like, what is your question in terms of how to deal with problem staff? Because I'm going to be recording that episode very soon to go out towards the end of this month. All right. So running a brick and mortar studio, whether it's a cash-based physical therapy or a Pilates studio or yoga or any combination thereof, is challenging in terms of where we should be spending all of our money, especially when we want to protect our profit. Okay. So when we have overheads such as rent and utilities, and depending on the market you're in, if you're in Manhattan, your rent is going to be one thing. And if you're in rural Arkansas, your rent might be something else. Being in a major metropolitan area in Miami and having two retail spaces is expensive. And so it's really good to be able to manage all the different costs to ensure profitability, ensure that we can keep operating. And so I really want to kind of discuss with you some industry benchmarks for key expenses that we have normally in our business to help you stay on track, and also maybe just help you thinking about it. So what we're going to go over today, and I'm going to be very, very, very fair, and shout out Kickstart Accounting, who presented this beautiful handout, which I am going to create something similar. But we went over this in our last year's 2023 CEO Summit. So if you are interested, stay tuned for more details about the CEO Summit, because a wait list is going to be happening soon. And we keep this only for 25 women. Okay. So, and you can bring your team, and it's a really, really great experience. So anyways, I want to shout out Kickstart Accounting. I'm going to go over some of the percentages that we use in our business, but she also gave us, so Danielle Hayden, the founder of Kickstart Accounting, gave my group, my mentorship group, this really great handout that talks about what is low, what needs attention, what we deem healthy, and then what is really high. So shout out to them. Be sure to go check them out. She also has a podcast. So I will link all of that up in the show notes. Okay, so let's start. Excuse me. Okay, let's start with what is usually the highest expense in our industry, as especially even if you have a brick and mortar location, which is payroll. Okay. Payroll is generally the largest expense we have for a service-based business, especially one like ours, because our business runs on other people performing the service. All right. So generally, and I'm going to say that we're going to consider everyone that is on our team employees, because I do believe that people should be hiring employees now, especially the majority of people on your team should be employees versus independent contractors. But industry experts generally recommend that we stay between 30 and 45% when it comes to payroll costs. Okay. And so that includes that if you're going to get up to the 45%, then that also includes your not only the pay you pay your instructors, but employment taxes, benefits, any continuing education, et cetera, et cetera. And so what I'm going to do now is show you how if you start your instructor pay at 50-50, you're really getting your payroll costs almost to 65% when you include in employment, taxes, et cetera, and benefits. Okay, so a good rule of thumb is to have your instructor pay, so what we would call direct cost of goods, or COGS, you'll see it abbreviated as COGS, sometimes cost of goods sold. It really is the direct cost that it costs you to provide that service. It doesn't include admin or marketing or anything like that. But what it does include is your instructor pay. Okay. Then some people put the additional payroll, like the taxes, what you pay if you use Gusto or a different platform, what you pay in your payroll processing software, what you pay in benefits if you offer health insurance, and anything like that. Okay. Other liability insurance and things of that not. So for us, when we roll in, and this is for like Pilates in the Grove, excuse me, when we roll in our cost of labor. So our cost of labor, when we have like our federal unemployment tax, our health insurance, the Medicare, the federal Medicare taxing, payroll services, Social Security, workers' comp, that comes to approximately like 4% of our income. Okay. Somewhere between, yes, about 4 to 7% of our income. It really kind of depends on the way, how many payrolls hit in the month, et cetera, et cetera. So it's about 4% of our income. So if we have our instructor pay be 40%, and now we have to add another 7% for all those payroll taxes and everything, now we're at 47%. And now we're high for our payroll. All right. So we're high for our payroll expenses, right? Our costs of goods. We really want to be, my sweet spot is to be at about a 30% for direct cost of goods. I like to be somewhere between 27 and 31%. with an additional 7% going towards those payroll fees, which I put in my operational account. Okay, like my operations expense. So now you also have to remember that if you have payroll that is administrative, okay, that goes in a different category, usually on your P&L, and that should be around 8 to 10%. Okay, so direct cost of goods, you want to be in the sweet spot of 27 to 32%. And then your regular payroll should be between 8 and 10%. So that would include your admin, your additional payroll costs, your taxes, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So this is a really big one to, it's really tough because if you go on different platforms right now, like I just saw something on Facebook not too long ago where people were saying 60% goes to the instructor, 70% goes to the instructor. And while again, I think everyone deserves the highest pay they can possibly manage. It's really hard to run a business, especially a brick and mortar business, if you're paying out 60 to 70% of the revenue to your cost of goods, to your instructor. Because how do you operate on only 30 to 40% to pay for the marketing fees, to pay for your taxes, to pay for the rent, to pay for the utilities, the maintenance, the upkeep of the equipment, the software, the credit card fees? That is a lot. And that's why so many instructors or so many studio owners are like, we don't really make a profit, or I pay myself less than I pay my instructors as an owner. And the owner is also the one that's doing the marketing and doing the bookkeeping and doing all of that stuff. So this is not, me saying that we should not pay people a fair living wage. No, that's not me saying that at all. And by the way, if you are, if you're charging $100, $150 a session, or you're generating $200, $300, $400 a class, your instructors can be making, between $35 and $90 an hour. And that is a really great living wage. So, we have instructors at Pilates in the Grove that make six figures a year or very close to six figures, $95,000 a year. That are full-time instructors. Okay. They get benefits, they get vacation, they're saving, for retirement. And so you can have a profitable business and still stay within a healthy margin, healthy percentages for what you pay out to your team. All right. So this always sparks a huge, huge, huge conversation. If you feel like you would like to have a conversation about this, go ahead and DM me over on Instagram or shoot me an email. Christa at PilatesInTheGrove.com is my email, and you can find me on Instagram over at Christa Gurka. Okay. So just on average, let's say that you generate $100 per private. Let's just make it easy numbers. You charge $100 for a one-on-one session. So by these healthy percentages, your instructor's pay should be about 30 to 35% of that. So they would make $30 to $35. Now, if you're thinking right now, there's no way I could hire anyone for $30 or $35. One, I would say, what else can you offer them? Right? What are the other benefits? Now, the other benefits we can offer at Pilates in the Grove is that we have a full schedule. People can work for me 30 hours a week, which means they don't have to travel from studio to studio to studio and spend gas. They don't have to worry about marketing for clients. We keep their schedule full. They get benefits. We pay their taxes. They can get time off, paid vacation, which is really uncommon in this industry. And so they can make high five figures. So I can offer them additional. Now, if you're like, well, that's not really where I am right now in my business, that's fine. Then maybe you just have to charge more. So if you're like, I have to pay my instructors $40 to $50, then what you should be charging is $125 to $150 to stay within a healthy profit margin so that you can grow and put more money into marketing, et cetera, which is what we're going to talk about in another healthy percentage. All right. So does that make sense? Now, I am going to have a direct download part of this, so we will link it in the show notes. We are also giving, so people on my email list get copies of a lot of these direct downloads. So if you're not on my email list, head over to christagurka.com and get on my email list so that you have access to these direct downloads that you can grab by listening that I share in my email list of things that I share in the podcast. Does that even make sense? I don't even know if I'm speaking English today. I'm sorry. I'm having one of those just ADHD or menopause moments. I don't know what it is today, but I hope you're still listening. Okay. So next, usually the next highest expense, and specifically I'm talking for a brick and mortar business, is rent. Okay. At Pilates in the Grove, we pay for both of our locations. So cumulative, we pay about $15,000 a month in rent. Now, some of you that are in Manhattan are like, damn, that's a great deal. Like I know people that spend $50,000 a month in rent. Okay. If you're in Arkansas and you're spending $3,000 a month, you might be like, oh, wow, that's a lot. And it is, but hence our pricing is a little different. Our structure is a little different. Okay. But that's why you can't necessarily compare your business to someone's business down the street because you don't know what their expenses are, right? So the next highest cost is usually rent. Now, what's a healthy percentage in terms of overhead? We like to see, or I like to recommend this number to be under 15% of your overall revenue, less than 15%. Ideally, I like it to be around 10 to 12%. Now, again, this may depend on what area you're in, what market you're in. So you have a little bit of wiggle room, but then I always make sure that you're adjusting the other percentages accordingly. Okay. So that means if you are generating $100,000 a year, okay, $100,000 a year, your rent should be approximately 10 to 15% of $100,000. If it's more than that, that's a lot. So if you're generating $10,000 a month, your rent should be about $1,000 to $1,500 a month. Now, if you are just starting out, what you're bringing in relation to your rent, this may be off, but this is why it's really important to make sure you have enough capital in your business to operate for 3, 6, 12 months for the first year. Okay. And we just had this conversation in our inner circle group where most of us as business owners do not invest enough capital when we start our business. All right. And then we're strapped for money, and then we don't do marketing, we don't pay for things like that. So then we can't grow and we're stuck in this negative circle. So now on the flip side, if you sign a lease for $10,000 a month when you are just starting out, you better have $100,000 in capital to cover your first year. Because if you're not making any money, $10,000 just in rent is a lot of pressure. So recognize if you are just starting out, you can always expand. Okay. So maybe you start with 4 reformers instead of 8. Okay. Maybe you get a loan, take out a line of credit, right? Do a payment plan for your equipment so you can hold on to some cash to pay the rent. This is why negotiating good deals with a landlord is important. Can you negotiate an abatement? And what an abatement means is, can you do 4 months, 5 months, 6 months of free rent before you have to start paying? These are all things that you have to think about before you sign your lease, right? Because once you're in your lease, you're locked in. So Is it great to have a beautiful studio where you have windows all the way around? Yes, but then you have to charge accordingly. Okay. And if you're like, well, I can't charge that much for my expenses, then maybe you shouldn't rent a space that's $10,000 a month. All right. So again, our rent should be approximately 10 to 15%. Now, if you are up to over 15%, over 20%, over 25% of your gross income is going to rent, it's really hard to stay profitable. Okay. And stay in that higher zone where you're actually keeping some of your money. All right. So you really want to make sure you're looking at your terms in terms of like, is your lease, what is it per square foot? Is it triple net, which means you're going to have to pay more than just the rent, right? And then there's always sales tax added onto that. All right. So just remember when you're looking at healthy percentage, what goes to payroll is about what goes to your instructors or your clinicians is about, 27 to 35%, 30 to 35%. What goes to your rent, and if you have a mortgage, great, but about, 10 to 15%. Now, let's talk about another thing that is something that comes up a lot. What about marketing? All right, marketing expenses. And a lot of us have a hard time spending money on marketing because, some of us are worried that we are not going to get that back. Which, by the way, if you think about it, is the same worry, is the same fear people have when they balk a little bit at paying $100, $200, $250 for a physical therapy session. They're worried it's not going to work. It's the same thing with us in our business. We're worried that spending money on Facebook ads is not going to work, or we're worried that putting in a Google ad is not going to work, or spending money on flyers is not going to work. And so we just don't do it. But it's also really why it's important to have a full built out marketing strategy. Okay. So generally, a healthy percentage to be spending on marketing, advertising, healthy is between 5 and 10%. Okay. What is considered marketing? Social media, email campaigns, print ads, community outreach, Facebook ads, PR, right? Now, if you are just starting out and you are in a growth phase, okay, if you're in a growth phase, you might be spending 10 to 15% on advertising and marketing. Maybe you're even spending 20% on it. Okay. There are some businesses, like big businesses, like when you talk about like Uber or a new healthcare line that's coming out, that spend almost 50, 60%, they throw it back into marketing because that's what they're spending on. Okay. What you want to track is what is the return on your investment. Okay. So when you're measuring marketing ROI and you really want you can see, and you can see this if you're looking at your analytics, okay, which we go over a lot in our groups, looking at the analytics. Are you getting people from Instagram? Are you getting people from Facebook? Are you getting people from that ad? And there's easy ways you can track all of this information. Then what you want to do is double down on the channels that are bringing you the most ROI. So if you're not getting anything from Facebook, maybe you double down on Instagram. Okay. If you're not getting anything from either of those, maybe you double down on Google. All right. Maybe you double down on just doing community outreach. If you're like, dude, every time I do a workshop, I get like 5 clients. Awesome. Do more workshops. Okay. So you want to be building awareness. You always want to be marketing. That's my opinion. Even if you start to like decrease your budget to 5% because you're full, you always want to be getting your name out there and doing what works, which is why it's important to test these things and work through the whole strategy and the whole process so you can find the kink in the chain and then double down on the ones that are working. Optimize, repeat, optimize, repeat, optimize, repeat. Okay. So if you are only spending less than 5% on your marketing, unless you are completely full with an absolute wait list, like that's super low. All right. If you're spending somewhere between 6 and 8% and you do want to grow, you know that you have a little wiggle room to be like, okay, I can go up to 10% and charge and spend so that I'm still within this healthy percentage. If you're over 15 or 20%, unless you're in high growth phase, that's a little bit high. So look at your numbers. Like we looked at our numbers, we dropped from 2023 down to 2024. I'm actually going to look at this because I just did this metrics when I was looking. We decreased our marketing spend by like 50%. Now, why did we do that? Well, because when we were coming out of COVID, it was almost like starting a business from scratch. So in 2021, 2022, we went crazy gangbusters on marketing again. Like we just spent a lot on marketing because we had to let people know, like, we're back, we're safe, come visit, da, da. And then 2023, we dropped it a little bit. And then this year we were very full. So we went back down to like in 6 to 8% of our overall budget. Whereas in 2022, I believe we were at like 25, 30% of our overall budget was going towards marketing. But there was a reason for it. We needed to grow again. We needed to spend money to get people in. Okay. Now, let's talk about profit margins. Okay. So it's important to know where you want to be in the industry. Now, in our industry, generally, when you have a brick and mortar business, and again, I'm going to say general, is somewhere between 12 and 20%. On average, I like to tell people 12 to 15%, like 15%. And this is including the owner's salary on the P&L as a salary, not as a draw. Okay. So a healthy margin is about 15%. Okay. If you're over 15% and you're hitting, 50%, 60%, 30%, 40%, you with your salary on the books, you're knocking it out of the park. If you're at 20%, you're above probably more than 10, you're at the top 5 to 10% of our entire industry. So you're doing amazing. If you're under 4%, that's really low. Now, again, depends on where you are in your business. Maybe you're in a real high growth state. And so being under 4% is what you recognize that you're not really going to have a profit. Maybe you're opening your business for the first time. Okay. A good goal for your first year in business is to break even. Okay. So coming out of COVID, there's a lot of businesses that still aren't profitable in our industry. So in 2020, we had a negative profit margin. In 2021, we had a negative profit margin. In 2022, I believe we had a break even. In 2023, we started back up. We finished 2023, I believe, with a 4% profit margin. And then in 2024, Pilates in the Grove is currently sitting at 16% profit. So 2023, our 2024 year, 2023 into 2024, we did amazing. Okay. So we ended, so 2022, we ended net even. 2023, I believe we ended with an 8% profit margin. And now into 2024, we're at a 16% profit margin. So as long as you understand like why your profit margin is at 4% right now, you're going all in on growth and expansion and growing and, or growing your team or training your team. There's a reason, then you're like, okay, I'm good. But if you've been living at 4% for a long time and you're feeling burnt out, well, yeah, no shit. There's no profit in the business. You're running a business and there's no, for that. I mean, you can do whatever you want. If you come from money and you don't need profit, great. But for 4%, so if you're like even if you're generating, $500,000 in your business, a 4% profit margin means that you're, what is that? You're at less than $20,000 in profit. Like that's a lot of work for a little return. And I don't know, like that's where sometimes like even if you have multiple locations, it's important to track the profitability of each individual location. Because if one location is not making a profit and the other location is making a good profit, like why do you have two studios or three studios or four? Which are the ones that are dragging you down? Okay, so these are things to look for. It's really important to track your revenue, track your expenses, and can you look to cut unnecessary expenses? Can you optimize certain areas? Okay. Do you need to raise your prices? You have to look at all of those things. And having someone help you with that is really, really a great thing. So, being able to see what sticks out and be like, ooh, you're spending a lot of money on marketing. Is it working? Are you getting a return on that? Or is it time to start thinking about, is this working or do I need to pivot? Right? Is there something you can do to go back to your landlord and try to renegotiate your lease? Okay, we helped one of our inner circle members do that this year, and she was very nervous. And yeah, again, like all the mindset stuff, but she was able to speak to her landlord and help renegotiate a little bit of her lease, which is going to help give her a little bit of cushion to continue to grow. All right. So let me give you additional some additional things. I'm just going to kind of skim through these. So a healthy percentage for outside services like professional fees, attorneys, bookkeepers. Maybe you're doing um a mindset, a mastermind, a mentorship program. That would be about like 8 to 10% is healthy. Okay. So let's say you are generating $250,000 in your business. Okay. $25,000 is 10%. And, if you want to join a $15,000 mastermind, and that's going to get you to grow and also give you marketing tips. And then also you have then an additional $10,000 to spend on like your attorney, your bookkeeper. You're still in a healthy percentage. Okay. So fees, like, 3% credit card fees, it's pretty standard. So anywhere between like 2 and 5%. You can also, not everyone can renegotiate their credit card fees, but sometimes you can, depending on who you're using. Okay. The other thing you want to look at is a lot of times our payment processors, not our payment processors, our software or scheduling software, like whether you're using Moments or Walla or MindBody, sometimes the scheduling software itself charges you a fee, a percentage of your sales, in addition to Stripe or your credit card fees. So if you can look at those and try to drop those down, try to negotiate with them, that helps. 1% makes a total difference. Okay. If you do, think about this, if you do $500,000 a year in revenue, and you can make a 1% difference in the fees, all right, that's an additional $5,000 to your bottom line. So these are things to think about, all right? The other things that you can do is a lot of times if you swipe the credit card, the fees are a little bit less than if you key in the credit card. Sometimes there's higher fees if people are using Apple Pay versus or Google Pay. So there's little things that you can think about, and 1% can sometimes make a difference, right? If you can get 1% back on a variety of little things and you can add $10,000 to your bottom line, that's amazing. Okay. So now, travel and meals. This is a big one because everyone wants to add write-offs to their business account, but a healthy percentage is about 7 to 10%. Healthy percentage on travel and meals is about 10%. Okay. So we talked a little bit about, so basically your total expenses. So when you include training for your staff, training for yourself, payroll fees, utilities, operational costs, marketing, pay to your instructors, et cetera, Healthy percentage marketing for all of your expenses is somewhere between 75 and 85 or 90%. I'm going to say 75 to 85% would be great. Okay. Again, depending on the stage of your business, so that it leaves you with a 10 to 20% profit, or 15 to 20% profit. Okay. So you have a little wiggle room in there, but basically if you look at your expenses and all of your expenses are over 95%, that's a lot of expenses. Can you cut them down somewhere, or do you need to increase your prices? Or are you in growth mode and you know that you're going to have very little profit for the next year? So the most important thing really that I want to leave you with is that, you want to review your financials regularly. You want to benchmark your expenses against what industry standard is and against what your data-driven analytics are telling you, so that you can make objective decisions to optimize your expenses and maximize and protect your profit. Okay, so if you're on my email list, you will get this direct download where you can get this nice little graph of healthy percentages. I do think that you should go check out Kickstart Accounting because they were the ones that helped me put this together. Okay. And then they even have like healthy percentages in terms of what each thing means. Like, what do fees mean? What do facility means? What does training and consulting means? What does travel and meals mean? And all of that stuff. So go check out Kickstart Accounting, check out their website, and also check out, she has a podcast, Danielle has a podcast as well. We really refer a lot of our clients to them. And also, if you want to get on my email list so you can grab these direct downloads, go ahead and visit my website, christagurka.com. Sign up for my newsletter. I also believe if you go to my Instagram page, in my bio, there's a link to sign up for my newsletter so that you can continue to get these downloads and all these free assets that I give to the people on my email list. And if you want to be part of our inner circle group, okay, check out if there's still space available for the upcoming July enrollment cohort. So Kickstart Accounting, Danielle and her team are the money team in that program. So they do a monthly office hours call. They really work with a ton of people in our program. So it's great because then I have access to Danielle and I can help with strategy in terms of marketing and things like that for you and your business, especially if you're in growth phase, thinking about growing a team, thinking about growing into multiple locations. We would love, love, love to invite you to be in that community with us. All right, ladies, that's all I got for you today. I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, my friends, bye for now.